Assalamu alaikum and peace. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching one of the unique things in America, that is Muslim Network TV. Muslim Network TV reaches coast to coast in America, north to south, east to west, left coast and the right coast, and everything else in between, through satellite, Galaxy 19. 57 million subscribers, especially in the rural areas of our country. We also cover Canada and USA through the same satellite. We are also available to you on OTT devices like Amazon, Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku. You can download our app also on Android or iPhone and check our website. But if you decide to go through your route, which might be YouTube, that's where you need to ensure that you subscribe. So we continue to grow there while we are all around anyway. You always will find us with interesting conversation. And these conversations are not found in the mainstream America because mainstream television does not recognize a small number of your neighbors, 6 million Muslims in America. As a result, a lot of our neighbors think Muslims are about 20-30% in America, which is not true. So this is one group of people who do not want to inflate its number as normally in the thoughtfulness. And we have all sort of people. America is contributing to the world, and the world is contributing to America. That positioning of America is very critical. And that's why Muslims who come from 87 countries around the world and serve our people left and right, they and America need to talk. So everyone else is talking about Islam and Muslims. It's about time that we talk. With that spirit, we had a daily Radio Islam for 20 years, but it was reaching only Chicagoland. And now through Muslim Network TV, we're reaching everywhere. And today we will have, I'm looking forward to this conversation, a professor who is into genetics and biology, and she develops insight there. And sometimes I wonder, is she a scientist more or a social scientist? Me being a social scientist, I see more Muslims are going towards the sciences than social sciences. So I welcome everyone who is wandering in this world towards the social sciences. So we have today with us Dr. Rana Dajani. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Rana Dajani is a professor of biology and biotechnology at Hashemite University in Jordan. She's an authority on the genetics of Circassian and Chechen population in Jordan. She's currently visiting as a visiting scholar at the University of Richmond, Virginia. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very honored to join you on this show and to share and learn as well.
All right. Well, stop learning. You're in too many things already. I mean, if you're not sick and tired of you talking to people about your 5 scarves, I like to know about that because that might give me and our listeners some clue into what you are.
Perfect. I want to comment on your first sentence about doing so many things. I think this comes from our fitra, which is curiosity, wanting to ask questions, wanting to explore the world around us. And this is part of Islam as a way of life and part of humanity. This is how we evolved, to be curious. So I can't have enough of that until the last minute of our lives. We're always asking questions, reflecting, and trying to understand the world around us. And actually, that's why I think that was part of the reason of why I wrote my book, 5 Scarves. I was a visiting professor at Harvard a couple of years ago, and I was inspired to write it. And I called it 5 Scarves because, in life we talk about wearing many hats to represent the many roles we play in our lives. So I don't wear a hat, I wear a scarf. So I called it the 5 scarves. And the 5 scarves, or the 5 roles, are: first, I'm a mother, a parent. And I think to me, that's the most important role that I can do, because I'm helping bringing up the next generation. And if everybody can replace me in other roles, but in that particular role, nobody can replace me better than me bringing up the next generation. The second scarf is that I'm a teacher, educator, which is the second most important role any person can play in society, because the children, if they're not at home, they're at school. And so being a role model, a teacher, and inspiring the next generation as a teacher is very important. And that's why my hat off to all teachers. They're amazing people. If you can stand up in front of a class of 5th graders, you can do anything, believe me.
Wow, I need to subject myself to the 5th grader now.
Yes,
Watching your TED talk, in which you want to require the world to be 5th grade teachers. Maybe you will become a little smarter that way, but if it is any comfort to you, I'm a big supporter of Teachers Union, and maybe they should add to their agenda that before anybody graduate high school, they should teach 5th grade.
Absolutely. And I also want to add to that, we need more Muslims to be teachers, so that the children growing up in the school system can see people, instead of hearing about Muslims in the media, to actually meet the real people who are amazing and wonderful people, everyday people. We're your next door neighbor, who share the same universal values of honesty, good, taking care of each other, and creating a better society.
Okay, so that's the second scarf you have.
Yes, the third scarf is I'm a scientist. So I'm a molecular cell biologist, and I have 2 fields of expertise. So one is, as you mentioned, we're the world experts on Circassians and Chechens. So these are 2 ethnic populations who actually immigrated from southern Russia. They were forced out because of their religion. They were persecuted 150 years ago.
Well, we use the term genocide, what was done to those people, and we will get to that in the detail. But so one part of your biological research is about these 2 ethnic groups.
Yes, and we study certain diseases like diabetes in these 2 populations, and we discovered like a novel gene risk factor for diabetes. The other field of expertise is I study the impact of trauma and war on refugees, looking at their physiology, biomarkers, and looking at the impact of trauma on their DNA. We call this epigenetics, which is the interplay between the environment and your DNA. And we're asking this really stimulating question: is, can a person who has been exposed to war and trauma transfer that epigenetic signature to their children and grandchildren? And so this is the hot question now, and we hope
that seems to be a very actually very much needed as a applied research aspect as well, considering that the world today has the largest number of refugees ever in the recorded history, and what their children go through and things like that. And some of these children, people are worried about their identities and, a whole set of things. So this is an ongoing research on your part?
Yes, we actually just got a National Science Foundation grant to analyze the samples that we have gathered from grandparents and children and their granddaughters, trying to tease out if there is an inheritance of this impact, and what is that impact. And the reason is, as you mentioned, that we can develop better programs to alleviate this impact on the children going forward. And we're asking a question, you always look at the world either half full or half empty, the cup. So I'm an optimist. My husband says I see an ocean in a drop of water. And so we're trying to pose the question, how is resilience fostered in these children after being exposed to trauma and war? And so rather than looking at how war and trauma reduces our defenses and makes us more stressed, we're trying to see, as humans, we have evolved. We've always been in strife and war. How does that boost our resilience? How can we make ourselves more positive in dealing with these challenges going forward to create a better society?
So first is scarf, not the hat, is mother. Second is teacher. Third is scientist. So what's the fourth scarf?
So the fourth is a social entrepreneur. I founded a program called We Love Reading, which works on changing mindsets through reading aloud for fun to create change makers. The impact of this program is on the child, for the child to fall in love with reading, discovering their inner potential and the outer potential of the world around them through the reading. It's on the adults who are reading aloud, and we call them We Love Reading ambassadors, how they themselves, through reading aloud in a public space in their community, have discovered their leadership skills, have taken ownership and agency, and become more resilient. And lastly, the impact on the whole community, taking charge and having a mindset of I can, rather than waiting for somebody to come and save them. And that's what we want in the end, right? We want citizens, global citizens, who can take matters into their own hands, solving their own problems, and then helping others around them. We Love Reading now has spread to 61 countries. Yesterday, Malawi joined. And it's like a social movement that is spreading from neighborhood to neighborhood. And even in the United States, we have people in North Carolina, New York, and New Haven, in Urbana-Champaign, and many other places where it has spread even beyond our imagination.
So social entrepreneurship is the fourth scarf. That seems to be you have taken it from teachers. That's teachers' job also.
Yes. However, the challenge, especially in developing countries and even in developed countries in certain sectors of the community, reading is associated with school, boring, homework, or even religion sometimes, where it's forced upon you. And the kind of reading that really, where you reap the benefits, meaning increasing the imagination, increasing your vocabulary so you express yourself better, learning about others so you develop empathy, or learning critical skills, comes from reading for fun. And the problem with schools is that reading is not always for fun. In some places it is, but in the majority it's not. So that's why our program is about training local people from the community, a parent, a retired grandfather, a youth, a teenager who wants to do something, to read aloud for fun in a public space. So it could be a mosque, a church, under the stairs, under a tree, gathering children to read fun books. So that the child falls in love with reading and unlocks that magic. And later, we hope that this kind of attitude or this approach will be transformed into the schools. But as of now, most of the time, schools are more rigid and boring. But with COVID-19 and schools are shut down, We Love Reading has become a placeholder for parents to keep the children engaged with reading. And we know today, that the education systems need a whole reformation. The cracks are showing up even more, especially with COVID-19. So what we imagine as a future for education is how to create lifelong learners. And in order to do that, you want to think beyond the walls of the classroom and beyond the time forever. And to do that, you want to motivate children to want to learn, and you do that by when they fall in love with reading. So falling in love with reading makes them lifelong readers and therefore learners. And we call this education resilience, right? So rather than creating more curricula and more textbooks, no, if you motivate the child, they will seek opportunities to learn. This is like basic marketing, right? If you give something for free, nobody's going to take it if they don't want it. But if you plant that need, that I need this, I want this, then they will discover those opportunities and move forward.
Wow. So first hat is a mother, scarf. Second scarf is teacher. Third scarf is scientist. Fourth scarf is social entrepreneur, essentially movement to help children learn and love to read. And the fifth one?
The fifth one. So the fifth one is something I did not actually work to get. It was kind of given to me. So I was chosen as one of the most influential female scientists in the Islamic world a few years ago. And they had given a title for each one of us. Like there was the cardiologist, the mathematician. And, as you have just described, I have so many roles. I was looking, what are they going to call me? And then all of a sudden, my title was the Islamic Feminist. And I thought, what? Why? I mean, I'm a scientist, I'm a social entrepreneur, but I'm not a Islamic feminist. I never perceived myself as such. And I emailed them. I said, could you change it? And of course they said no. And to me, it's because, when you say Islamic, there's always a connotation to that. What is she about? And when you say feminist, also people say, what is she about? And I thought, oh, I'm going to lose everybody. But it actually, I want to thank them now because they kind of pushed me to embark on a journey to understand what that means and to claim it. Sometimes we get labeled, and it's up to us to redefine what that means on our own terms. So, and that's what led me to write my book. And if you read it, you'll understand how I unpack that. But in the end, you know what? I think my fifth scarf is I'm just a human being, like the 7 billion human beings on Earth, and we're all working together to make a difference and to create a better world in the future.
Well, thank you so much. But I wonder, if I look at my daughter, she has many more scarves than you do. You only have 5 scarves.
So that's it. We want your daughter and all these young women and young men to write their stories, to share their different roles. So we learn about them firsthand rather than reading about them through somebody else's voice. And that's why reading and writing are fundamentally important. So that I think we owe it not just to ourselves, but we owe it to the next generation. And we can't blame if somebody else writes about us what they write. So we need to, ump up. And again, this is a call from me to the young generation. We need more journalists. We need more writers. We need historians. We need social scientists, because most of our smart young people go into medicine, engineering, and they leave the other professions, which are equally, if not more important, especially globally and in the United States.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid and talking with Dr. Rana Dajani, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adam. You remember me? I appeared in so many episodes that Sound Vision has put on the market, no matter what. Hey, what's happening? Hey, oh, sorry. Lockdown is what it is. Well, continuing here. In this lockdown, Sound Vision never stops thinking about you, the viewer. We'll have to get back into production again, online and inline. Everybody in their own space, even me. Although I'm stuck with Lanisa.
Salam! Salam! Salam!
I know, you were shocked too. Well, let me continue. This is what I was going to say. Salam! 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 Cut! Finally, I get my own screen time again. Thank God. And so we invested in new equipment to bring you even better production with new songs and new singers and animations. Well, here are a few clips. And Sound Vision has brought all this into your home, making Islamic values and teachings easy. And if you know me, Adam, a multi-talented actor, well, sometimes I'm an actor and the reporter and the... Oh, that's enough. Let's move on to the next section. Well, you can watch these new episodes on our new app at www.adamsworldapp.com. We have previews happening every day on Muslim Network TV. Sound Vision has been serving generations, moving and changing with the times. We are all faithfully connected. That is a huge blessing. Your donation helps keep these programs available now and into the future. We take this job of helping tomorrow's Muslims today seriously, and you should too. Today, we need your help. Children absorb and learn from everything they encounter. Make that wholesome, positive, grounded in our faith. Together, we can accomplish our goal of raising better Muslims, better neighbors, and better citizens. Please donate generously.
It's an investment in our future.
To finish, let me tell you, there are new scripts of my new mission. And it is something that I enjoy talking about. My new mission is space. Houston,
We do not have a problem. Salam. See you soon. Me too.
Welcome back to Muslim Network. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Dr. Rana Dajani. Tell us that, I rarely find people, I went to University of Chicago here in Chicago, I rarely find scientists who dive into social sciences. So how this transition came into being? I know it is all secret is in your scarves, but what was this transition like?
Actually, it's not a transition. I'm actually doing both, right? I'm following my curiosity. So I'm still the molecular biologist doing research. As I mentioned, we just got a National Science Foundation grant trying to understand epigenetics. And of course, science is not a one person job, it's a team. So I have a team of scientists we work together from Yale University, Florida University, and so on. Now, at the same time, what is a scientist? It's seeing what everybody sees, but thinking what no one has thought, right? And so, and from observation, which is also part of our way of life as Muslims, it's all about observing, reflecting. And so I think the first move to social science a little bit came when the Syrian crisis happened and many Syrian people came over to Jordan. I don't like to call them refugees. They are family, they are friends, they are sisters and brothers who have undergone a huge strife in their lives. And so again, seeing them and seeing the overwhelming numbers and the challenges they face, I asked the question, how is that affecting their mental health? How is that affecting, and then how do you understand that mental health? And you can do that through biomarkers. But that first introduced me to more of the social sciences. But even more so, because I'm a scientist and I look for evidence always, and I always ask the question, why? And it's like, I also want to compare this to the verses in the Quran from Ibrahim, when he asked Allah to show me how you bring back the dead. And Allah didn't say, don't ask the question. Mm-hmm. He actually answered him and he showed him evidence, right? He told him, go and bring a bird. And so that's such a beautiful role model, example of how we should conduct our lives. So when I started the We Love Reading program and working with children, I wanted to understand how this program works. and not just to understand how it works, but also to make it better. And that's where I really got more into the social sciences. And again, I didn't do this work by myself. I invited the experts. So this is important, that no man can do everything. It's all about teamwork and collaboration. So I invited scientists from Brown University, Columbia University, University of Chicago, and many universities around the world, inviting them to come and understand what is Wheel of Reading doing right and why it works. And we publish all our work in peer-reviewed journals. And that's one of the reasons we have succeeded also in Wheel of Reading, because it is based on rigorous academic research, showcasing why it works, for example, affecting emotional recognition, affecting executive functions like working memory, inhibitory control, and other things that make children actually do better at school. And I think this divide between the basic sciences or applied sciences and the social sciences is something that humans have invented in modernity. In reality, there's no difference. We should destroy these silos. Everything is interdisciplinary, interconnected. And if we're going to solve the challenges of the 21st century, we need to reach out across these disciplines and lines and work together. Because I think when you come from another discipline, you see things in a different way, right? You're new, and you ask the questions that others have stopped asking or don't dare ask anymore. It's just like, Yamanaka, who discovered how to develop stem cells from adult cells. When he first proposed that, people thought he's crazy or ignorant, but he had the courage and to say, why not? And he got a Nobel Prize after 6 years of discovering this. So it's always about, question and ask, why not? Because this is part of our journey in seeking the truth and trying to understand the world around us.
Wow. So so you want to take us back to the time of Al-Biruni and Khwarizmi, when they have a whole lot of multidisciplinary scholars who are inventors and thinkers and philosophers, and they were connected with the people before. So interconnectedness and building on each other's knowledge. I find in most of the people who study in America, and they do very micro level of research, and when they go back to their countries, they're sort of don't quite fit, because the machine of the research doesn't exist, and they have done so overlapping knowledge probably for students from the other countries who get into the highly disciplined research factories or research universities. Overlapping knowledge actually will make them more useful in the other world. So this particular point which you're mentioning, how much academic fields and sciences and other places people are recognizing this particular issue which you are presenting right now?
No, your point is very, very important. It's slow. It's starting to change a little bit, raising awareness. But you're absolutely right. Most people come back from the U.S. or Europe, and they don't know what to do, and therefore they cannot advance research to the level that they were working, where they did their PhD or their postdoc, and that's where this interdisciplinary becomes important. And for them to see themselves that they have a role for the community outside their labs and their classrooms to employ the skills and the knowledge that they've gained to make a difference in their community. And not just that, it's also about science communication, right? It's about sharing true facts. And because especially now with COVID-19 and all the fake news and the myths and the conspiracy theories, it's very important the scientists hone their skills in communication to send that message of, what is a virus, how it infects us, what's the benefit of a vaccine, and to raise that awareness wherever they are as well.
So stem cell research, which you have been engaged, tell us a little bit about that.
I always want to be up to date in what's happening in my field, and this is how we all should be, right? To be a perfectionist, to make sure that we are doing high quality work. I want to add here that when you're doing what you love, you end up doing high quality work, because it's not a job, it's something you enjoy. And this is a shout out to young people to follow their passion and study what they love. Like Einstein said, if you study what you love, you never work one day in your life. You're always playing. And that's how I feel. I'm always having fun. So back to your point. I went to the U.S. Later when stem cell technology was really the thing, and I took some courses on how to work with embryonic stem cells and adult stem cells, and then I thought to myself, wait a minute, can I work with these kind of cells, because some of them are coming from embryos? And as a Muslim, I needed to rethink the ethics of that. See, so as a scientist, you can't separate from yourself. You have to be involved in everything. And so going back to Jordan, I looked around and I found out that we don't have guidelines to help us as Muslim scientists globally what to do. And again, my mantra is be the change you want to see in the world. Or like Prophet Muhammad said, everyone is a guardian, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I thought, I gathered a group of people, scientists, physicians, bioethicists, lawyers, and religious scholars, and we created a team to study and produce laws and regulations to govern using stem cells in therapy and in research. And actually, Jordan is one of the first countries in the region who actually has a law today because of those efforts that started a few years ago. So again, our role as scientists goes beyond the lab to be involved in policy where it's needed, or at least to push that envelope forward and have a stand. And so stem cell technology is one of them. CRISPR technology is another. We wrote a commentary in Nature on that as well. So scientists have to be more vocal in talking about that. And I also want to pay attention to, so there's a society in the US based in California called the Society for the Advancement of Science and Technology in the Arab World. And I'm the president in a volunteer capacity. And it's a network of Arab scientists in the West, drawing upon them to mentor and help and support raising awareness and doing good science in the Arab world, which is also part of the Islamic world as well.
So, so learning and researching in the field of stem cell, you went into development of ethic law. So did you study law, how to write a law, or you deliberated on it, or as you have done in other areas, you develop a team of lawyers to deliberate and develop some guidelines? How collaboration in developing a law in a country like Jordan works?
So we created a team, and we advocated in the government to create a national team, which was made of lawyers, religious scholars, physicians, scientists, and any stakeholders. And we deliberated. So of course I didn't write the law and I didn't study law, but I gave my opinion as a scientist. What is a cell? What is an embryonic cell? What is a stem cell? And then the religious scholars would come in and understand the science, and then they would explain to us, the scientists, the religious stand. What is maslaha amin, the get better good for the community? What is getting consent? What is so they would explain the concepts and the values that are used in Islam, and then we would have that negotiation back and forth until we reached a consensus where everybody agreed on what are those guidelines for using stem cells in research and in therapy. And it's a continuous conversation. Actually, you mentioned this is how things were done in the past in the Islamic civilization, and that's why it flourished, because of this openness, this listening to other people's opinion, this accepting of others, agreeing to disagree, and having a dialogue, a conversation, and practicing critical thinking, how to act and how to respect the other person while disagreeing at the same time.
Well, being a student of Hanafi fiqh, I know that Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah alayh, has a team of about 40 students who more or less were research scholar, deliberating and debating. And many of our fiqh book reference to Imam Hanifa come because of his students, that his students' opinion prevailed, and either Imam stuck to his opinion or he changed his opinion based on his students' opinion that they were right. So this deliberative process, when it began, how many women were there?
So we were almost, I want to say 40%, there were women. So we had people from the Jordan FDA, they were women. We had scientists who were women. We had a physician who were women, and we had men. So it was almost 40%, 50%. Yeah, very well representation, which actually brings me to 2 points to comment on that. One is that this diversity of opinion in Islam, it's a hadith from Bukhari saying that, you know, if a scholar deliberates and does no mistake, he gets 2 rewards, and if he does a mistake, he gets 1 reward. This is so freeing. It's an invitation, you know, to think out loud and to explore. The other point is there's this myth of how that we have less women in STEM in the Muslim world, when actually, especially at the level of school, meaning school and undergraduate and graduate school, we actually have more than 60% of females in the Muslim world. The numbers only go down when you look at the workforce. However, if you compare the percentages of women in STEM in the Muslim world compared to, say, the US or Europe, in Europe and the US, it's much lower. So sometimes the statistics are not always presented in the right way, and people get the impression.
That is so true. When I came to University of Chicago, I was surprised it has far less women at graduate school than I had at Karachi University.
Exactly.
At Karachi University, women were in majority, and here they were very small minority. Actually, still it hasn't changed a whole lot there. So yeah, that is one of those myths. We're talking with a professor from Jordan who is studying in the United States, not studying, but a research fellow at the University of Richmond, Virginia, Dr. Rana Dajani, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum!
I love Adam's world because it makes me learn in a fun way. That Adam has a green face and orange hair. I like this song. I like how Adam sings. I like Adam's world because it makes me happy. What? No. 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 And here's Adam and here's Anissa. Adam and his sister. Adam is a boy and he is very smart.
Download the new Adam's World app at adamsworldapp.com and let's help tomorrow's Muslims today.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and we're talking with Dr. Rana Dajani. Studying Tolstoy, I became interested when I read his Haji Murad, which is about Chechen people. And then when Chechen was recently struggling for their rights, I think about 20 years ago in Russia or something, and their massacre was taking place. And so we were educating Muslims in America about who Chechens are and how historically they have been oppressed. And Circassian, whose genocide actually dispersed them from their ancestral land, currently under Russian state, to all over the Muslim world. And then but I never met these people. So I was invited by current King of Jordan and Prince Charles. Together they convened about, I think, 24, 25 people who are active at the world arena in the interfaith movement. So I ended up in the King's Palace, and there I saw these people who looked different than Arabs. And they were dressed very, in some type of ancient costume type of dress with daggers and swords and multiple historic arms. Probably they have some guns somewhere as well, which were not quite visible. So I asked them, who are they? It turned out they're Circassians. And so when I was reading about your bio, that you have done research about them. So tell me, first thing, I didn't know there are that many Circassians and Chechens in Jordan. How tell us a little bit in briefing before we talk about your research, how these people ended up getting dispersed. Now, majority of them doesn't live in Russia, probably 1/5 or 1/4 are there now.
Yeah, so they have been living, both the Circassians and the Chechens. These are two separate populations. They were living in what is today southern Russia, the Caucasus Mountains for the Circassian, and the Chechens is what is today Chechnya, because they got their independence. Now they've been living there for thousands of years. They're an ancient lineage from the human evolution tree, so they're pretty ancient, just like the Basque in Spain. And they've been living their lives, and they didn't intermarry. So each one had their own language, and therefore their gene pool, their DNA is pretty unique. Now they became Muslim when the Ottoman Empire spread almost 1,000 years ago, and then when Russia spread, they occupied their lands, and there was, like you mentioned, a genocide where they were either killed or deported to Siberia, and or those who were able to fled south, and they were in diaspora. So many settled in, especially the Circassians, they settled in Turkey, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, even they moved west, some settled in Egypt, Libya, and as far as New Jersey in the United States. There's a big population of Circassians in New Jersey. And same thing with the Chechens, but to a lesser degree. And so they settled in Jordan, right? So there's a big population in Jordan for both communities, and they remained isolated genetically, meaning they did not marry with the Arabs or with like Chechens did not marry with the Circassians. And so they preserved not just their gene pool, but also their culture, their heritage, their language for the past 150 years when this happened. And so that's their history. So coming back from my PhD, I was a Fulbrighter in the States when I did my PhD. I came back to Jordan, and I wanted to do good research. Back to your original comment on how do you do good science in a developing country with a lack of funding. And I had pursued science because I loved it. I always wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be an explorer. I couldn't explore the Arctic and the moon. I could explore what's happening inside a cell. But I wasn't able to get a scholarship to go abroad to do my PhD when I first graduated. And this is kind of a digression on this, but it relates. You'll see. I got married. I was a school teacher for 10 years. But then my husband saw an ad in the newspaper for the Fulbright, and we got it, and we all moved to the States where I did my PhD. So coming back to Jordan, I have a passion. I'm not just ticking off a list. It's not a job for me. So I spent a whole year reading what's happening around me in terms of science. And it was the Human Genome Project had just been completed. People were identifying the differences between different ethnic populations in their DNA. And that's when the light bulb lit up, when I realized that I have two ethnic populations right in Jordan, my backyard, and they are relatives of my husband. So I could study them, and nobody in the world had studied them before. Again, seeing what everybody sees, but thinking what no one has thought. And so I created a team. And because I wanted to do a whole study, not just a little thing, I wanted to become the expert. So we invited an anthropologist to study these two populations from an anthropological point of view. I invited an epidemiologist to study, okay, so what are the prevalent diseases? We invited a physician, a biochemist, to look at the different profiles. So we chose to look at diabetes because it's not a stigma. Everybody has diabetes, and it's a worldwide epidemic. And so we did all their biochemistry, looking at their triglycerides, their LDL, their HDLs, their cholesterol. And we wrote a number of papers about the different prevalences of different diseases. And then we honed in on diabetes because they had the lower percentage of diabetes compared to the Jordanian population. So the Jordanian population was like 17% prevalence, and the Circassian and the Chechen, it was around 10%. And so we wanted to understand why. And as a result, we discovered a novel gene risk factor that predisposes to diabetes that's not just present in those two populations, but are present worldwide. And now we're trying to understand what is the function of that gene. And by looking at stem cells and trying to understand the protein that is expressed by the genes to unravel that part and hopefully contribute to therapy. But of course, this is a project that never ends. The more questions we answer, the more questions pop up. So now we're looking at their pharmacogenomics. Because of personalized medicine, most of the databases are coming from European-based populations. And so the data is kind of skewed and is not relevant for personalized medicine for other populations. So we have been contributing with our DNA database to understand more the genes that are related to different drugs so that we could develop better medications and better therapy going forward. And that's why now people come to us from around the world wanting to work with us because we became the world experts on these two populations. And it's something we're proud of. Even though you're coming from a developing country, you have limited resources. It's all about asking the right question. And when you ask the right question, everything else works. So, for example, we published in Nature 2 years ago, which is the dream of every scientist anywhere in the world, studying human migration from Asia to Europe, comparing our modern DNA that we have with ancient DNA from 11,000 years ago.
So, is there any applied benefit to the Jordanian society when you compare why, there is a genetic difference between this population and that population? I mean, sometimes these type of research leads to genetic therapy.
Yeah, of course. That's why, now that we have the pharmacogenetic profile of the Circassians and Chechens, when personalized medicine becomes a reality for everybody, the physicians are going to consult that database so that they could prescribe better drugs for the population. And we also, the study also looked at lifestyles because, for example, diabetes is a complex disease. It's not just genetics, it's also your environment. So also we gave recommendations on, what are healthy lifestyles, whether it's, stopping to smoking, more exercise, the nutrition and the diet that you have. So it has a wonderful impact on not just the Circassian Chechen population, but on the human population in general.
Jordan, I know, but I don't know the statistics, have a lot of refugees from Iraq and Syria. Normally European countries come into light that there are refugees from those countries, but how many, do you have any idea? Although this is not your field, but you have studied trauma across generations. So I'd like to know a little more about what is the number of refugees there, and it's your research somehow connects you because the Circassian came 150 years ago essentially as a refugee, and now we have recent refugees and largest human refugee population in the world currently. So what type of populations did you start researching to take your research forward in this area?
Great question. I want to comment on the word refugee. I think the whole human are collectively refugees moving from one place to another. The United States is
You
made
can take
of
out the political aspect of it. I mean, I can generate, I can see 7 generation of mine, and only one of that is politically refugees. Rest of them.
So we're all moving around all the time, سعي في الأرض. So yeah, but back to your question, I just wanted to say that. In Jordan, actually, if we're going to focus on the last wave of refugees, which is the Syrian, right? But before that, we have Iraq, we have Somal, we have Yemen, we have Palestinians. I'm half Palestinian myself. So my father was a refugee in 1948 when he had to flee Jerusalem, where I'm originally from, because of the Zionist occupation. So again, the latest one is the Syrian refugee crisis. We have around, roughly, of course, 2 million Syrian refugees now in Jordan. So the Jordanian population now is 9 million. So we have 2 million extra. And
huge. I mean, proportionally speaking, probably that may be the highest proportion of indigenous versus refugee population, unless Lebanon might have little more.
I think, yeah, it's a competition, Lebanon versus Jordan. And again, these are like rough estimates. I don't have the latest numbers, but that's roughly the number. And the Jordan government has been amazing in welcoming, taking care, giving equal opportunity, trying to maintain this, because again, Jordan is made up of many refugees over generations, Palestinian, Iraqi, Yemeni, and all that. And that's what piqued my curiosity to conduct this research that I mentioned about looking at the stress and the trauma of the war and displacement on the physiology and biomarkers of mental health and stress, like cortisol. So cortisol is a hormone that we secrete when we're stressed. And one way to assess stress is having self-reports. But another way is by looking at your biomarkers, because your body doesn't lie. And so that research was done in collaboration with Yale University. And what we did is we actually took adolescent Jordanian and Syrian kids, and we looked at the level of cortisol. Now, there are different ways to measure cortisol. One, we could look at it in the blood, but that's kind of messy. We could look at it in your saliva, but that's also messy. We tried it. The kids were spitting into tubes. that didn't work. But, science is amazing. So we already know now that cortisol is deposited in your hair. So if I take 100 strands of your hair, there's a history of how stressed you are for as long as your hair is, because your hair grows 1 centimeter a month and cortisol deposits in that hair. And so we talked to the boys and girls, and we explained the science to them. And he said, what do you think? Should we do this? And they were the ones who were guiding us and leading. Yeah, let's do the hair thing. And they suggested having haircuts. So it was a fun thing, raising awareness to science and doing research at the same time. But most importantly, giving this agency to the children, to the adolescents, that they want to understand what's happening to their bodies. And they want to understand these programs that are coming to help them, if they really work or they don't, right? So they have some kind of agency on their future, which helps, make them more optimistic. And we did that study, and then we shared the results with them. And we were able to show that, for example, in one particular program, that it helped reduce stress and anxiety, but it also had claimed that it increases resilience. And we found out that it did not increase resilience, but it did reduce stress, so it's nuanced. And that's important, because what they did as a result of the data is that now the program has been re-engineered to boost resilience. How? Because there's 3 ways of boosting resilience. You could do it at the individual level, at the family level, at the community level. So the program that was being used in the past was designed by Westerners, and the Western mentality of resilience is based on an individual level, that you boost your own without looking at the wider family and community. While in our part of the world, it's more about community and family. So now the program is involving the parents and the community to make sure that we boost up the resilience. So it was fantastic, because we were able to deliver better programming for the kids. And oh, by the way, there's a whole movie that was done on us. It's called Terror and Hope, which won the Best Science Documentary recently in 2020.
Terror and Hope, that is called.
Yes, and we'll share the link.
Okay, that will be simply great. So tell me, we started about 5 scarves: mother, teacher, scientist, social entrepreneur, and one which you didn't choose yourself, Islamic Feminist. So which scarf do you use often?
Oh, I can't tease them apart. They're all mingled together in one, mixed together like any good food. It's a mixture of spices and a mixture of textures that bring out what is best in them. But I think I'd like to highlight one thing I think that's important, which is the last one, the feminist, and which is actually highlighted in my book, especially the last 2 chapters, talking about what you mentioned, that we have more women in STEM in terms of graduate studies, that maybe as Arab Muslims, we're doing something right. You know, we're always used to the fact that the West is more advanced and all the solutions are there. But sometimes we may have solutions that others can learn from us, that we can study and understand. And one of them is, how come we have so many girls in STEM in the Muslim world compared to the other parts of the world? So I wanted to highlight that. And there's an article that we wrote about that, calling scientists to study this phenomena, to try to understand it and share with the world. The other thing is the other challenge, I think, that is worldwide for females and minorities is that we have lower numbers in the workplace, not just in science, but in business and law and politics all over the world. And so that intrigued me. And to me, the proposition that I had put forward for that, or the hypothesis, and I tackled it as a scientist, that's me always, is the workplace as we know it today was designed by men for men. And men, even it's more about the white male kind of framework. And when women went into the workplace, especially after World War I, they didn't pause and say, hey, wait a minute. This framework was done by men for men. We may have a little bit of different priorities compared to you guys, maybe for one basic difference between males and females that nobody can argue, which is, you know, evolutionary biology, that I have a uterus, I have kids, I'm going to be pregnant for 9 months and the guy won't. Although one guy told me, no, biotechnology will advance and men will be pregnant. I said, fine, when that happens, we'll discuss it. But today, this is a fundamental difference. So maybe we have a little bit difference in our priorities at certain times in our age. And so my hypothesis is that rather than imposing the same framework on everybody, especially when humans are so diverse, there's no human being who is similar to the other. So how come we could all want the same thing, right? That doesn't make sense. And I wanted to ask, challenge that assumption and say, what if we all find our passion and design a framework that is so colorful and so diverse, celebrating this, and the only way to achieve that is giving freedom of choice, freedom of pursuing our passion and respecting people for what they choose to do. And this is, it started with about women, but it's about every minority group and every person in the world to find out what they want, so that they can pursue what they want. And when they do that, they become happier. And when you're happier, everybody around you is happier, and you create a better society that is driven by motivation, by ownership and feeling of responsibility. And that's how system change happens, by addressing the pivotal points, the root causes, to make a better world for the future.
Well, thank you so much. That particular talk which you have in conclusion, I actually, while preparing for the show, I shared that video with my daughter, and especially I asked her to not only watch that, because I also watched it, but also the frame, the graph which you have, how the men's career progresses and how women choose to deal with their career at different stages. And so that was fascinating. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rana Dajani, for sparing your time, and I wish you the best with all these scarves which you continue to have. And I enjoyed talking with you, and we will do it again. And thank you so much, Sherdil Khan and Dr. Abdul Wahid, for producing today's show. And thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new today. That's what we do every day myself. You're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, reaching USA, Canada, and Mexico. Also on OTT devices, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku. And you can always download our app or visit our website, muslimnetwork.tv. Peace and salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.